What do you think of this recipe next, Lucy? Hmm? Oh, hello! Hello everyone, I am Jenna and this is Gin and Tonic. The weather's getting a little cooler out here in Texas, so Lucy and I decided that we would stay in this weekend and enjoy some mulled wine. This goes by many names depending on what country that you're in, and it's perhaps the oldest beverage in the world. I don't know if that's true, but I can tell you that I found that I can't tell you if that's true, but I did find that the ancient Egyptians called it the drink of the afterlife, and that's pretty old. Ancient Greeks used to use this more to prevent waste. Anything that they didn't think was good enough at the end of harvest to drink on its own, they would heat up with spices to make it a little bit more palatable. This was used in Roman times as well, for a couple different things. One, if they had some wine that had been open for a couple days, they would add herbs and heat it up just to not waste it. They also used to give it to the soldiers to keep them warm, and as they conquered Europe, the recipe spread as well. In medieval times, they called the drink Hippocras. This was after Hippocrates, the Greek physician. During medieval times, they also believed that it would promote health and ward off sickness. Some form of this recipe can be found basically everywhere in Europe, with different names and traditions everywhere you go. The one thing that they have in common is that there's some type of wine, some types of herbs and spices, and something to sweeten it that's all added together and warmed up. It forever became associated with Christmas after Charles Dickens wrote about a smoking bishop in his novel A Christmas Carol. Smoking bishop is meant to signify smoking because of the smoke that comes off of the wine when it's warm, and bishops wore red hats. I'm doing a play on the glögg version, which is Swedish. Something they do with theirs is incorporate raisins and almonds, and then when they give it to you, they serve it with a little spoon so you can enjoy those as you're drinking it. Also, they like to include some type of a spirit, traditionally vodka or aquavit. I'm using rum because it's what I have, and you could honestly use anything here. For my spice blend, I'm using some star anise, cinnamon sticks, cloves, cardamom, and allspice. And I can include a link for you. Most of the stuff you can get at the grocery store, but if you're having a hard time like I did with the cardamom pods and the allspice, you can get those off of Amazon really easily. I'm going to add some orange, some fresh ginger root, and then for my sweetening agent, I'm using Lingonberry Jam, which is Swedish. For the wine, use something that you would drink every day, something young and fruity. It's spiced, it's sweet, you just want something that's not going to stand up to the spices that you're adding to it. Just to summarize everything that you'll need for the recipe that I'm making today, I have 2 cinnamon sticks, 5 green cardamom pods, 2 star anise, 5 cloves, and 5 allspice that I've cracked. It's important to use whole spices and not ground spices here. If you use ground spices, when you go to strain it, you're not gonna be able to get everything out, and it's gonna make your wine grainy when you go to taste it. If you use these, they come out really nice in your cheesecloth. I'm gonna take allspice and the green cardamom, and I'm just gonna take this big pot that I'm going to be using for the mulled wine and try to crack them as good as I can underneath of it. I also have a half a cup of sliced almonds, a half a cup of raisins, a piece of ginger root that I've peeled, and a whole orange that I've zested. For my sweetener, I'm using the Lingonberry Jam. And for my wine, I'm using Wassail Pinot Noir, which is just a light Pinot from California. I am using Myers rum for this recipe. Like I said, you could use anything here, or you could choose not to use it. You also need some cheesecloth, so if you bought this when you made the simple syrup, you can reuse it here. First thing I'm gonna do is heat up my dried spices in my pot, which is great because it's gonna make the whole room smell extremely aromatic. I'm gonna heat this up to medium and just pour all of that in there. Just make sure that it's fragrant, and then you're ready to move on to your next step. Before you add anything else to the pot, you wanna remove it from the heat. I'm going to be adding my rum next, and if I add that to a hot pot, it's gonna splash back at me and hurt. And I'm clumsy enough without doing something like that. So I'm gonna move that over here. I've measured out 4 ounces of rum. This is really like a sauce. You could add as much or as little as you want to your taste. After you've added the rum, you put it back on the heat. And you want it to simmer up again. You don't want to let it boil, because if it boils, it's going to evaporate all of the alcohol. And as soon as you get it to that point, which should only take a couple seconds, as you can see, you add everything else to your pot. So oranges, almonds, ginger root, raisins, all going in. Sweetener, Lingonberry Jam. If you don't have jam and you're gonna use sugar, use about 8 ounces of sugar for every bottle of wine. And then in goes the wine. Once you get everything in the pot, you want to bring it up to a simmer. If you bring it up to a full boil and let it stay there, it's going to evaporate the alcohol, which I think defeats the purpose. I had a friend on Instagram remind me recently that in high school we used to sing a song called Wassail, Wassail all over the town. And I guess it was basically a version of mulled wine. What's funny about it to me, and those of you who were in chorus with me, shout out to Dr. Phillips, you may remember how there was approximately 6 verses to this song, and we just sang the first one over and over again. And our choral director, Miss Meadows, got so upset with us. Thanks for reminding me about that, Hurrig. It took me about 6-7 minutes to get it to come up to a simmer. Now that I've done that, I'm gonna let it sit here for just a minute just to get everything all incorporated. And then I'm gonna remove it from the heat, cover it up, and let it sit for 2 hours. After you remove it from the heat, you can let it sit anywhere from 2 hours to a few days, depending on how much time you have before you're going to be serving it to everyone. The longer you let it sit with the spices in it, the more of those flavors are going to take on in the wine. My mulled wine's been sitting for a few hours. Now I'm gonna strain out all the solids. I've got my cheesecloth over my pitcher here. You just wanna do it slowly so it doesn't spill all over the place. When you're cutting your cheesecloth for this, depending on what you strain it into, make sure you've got the cloth big enough that you can hold on to the sides of it. Another way you could do this too, if you want to put all of your spices in the cheesecloth to begin with, then you can just remove it at the end. When you get ready to serve it, just reheat it either in the microwave or on the stove. And as far as serving vessel, I've got these cute little punch cups that my grandmother gave me. You could also use the traditional German tankards, or you could use the Swedish ones. They have little handles and stems, and they give you little spoons if you want to put the raisins and the almonds back in it so that you can enjoy those as you're drinking it. I'm Jenna, and this is Gin and Tonic.